Okay, well let's move into the next one then, the last one, which when I read it, because of my own sort of history of interests over the years, as someone who grew up in a fairly fundamentally Christian home, during my adolescent rebellion, I definitely entertained the exact opposite of everything I was told. So it so it made perfect sense to me. But it also, it seems sort of like kind of oddly placed because there's nothing else in your entire book that would even reference you thinking about this kind of a thing as being relevant, which is that survivors of satanic ritual abuse.
Hmm. And do you want me to comment about this?
I do,
Well,
yeah.
oh, okay. I've actually tried with a couple of these people unsuccessfully. First of all, the trauma is just so incredibly, unbelievably horrendous that it's almost impossible to access and heal it. But the second thing that I found is that when it's very very ritualized and very organized, they actually program the kids that they're abusing so that therapy doesn't work. So like when I was working with this one client, we would do a session and he'd have memories of the trauma and he'd start to integrate them, and then the next time I see him, they completely vanished. And so some of this satanic network is very highly organized, and they have very sophisticated ways of programming it so that therapy will never work. Unfortunately, it's really, really sad and horrendous what goes on in those places.
I think that's really like the big surprise for me was, or maybe the surprise for a lot of people is, is this frequent enough to warrant bringing it up that, like, oh, by the way, this specific thing, watch out for this. Like, have you noticed it being like, is satanic ritual abuse like a common enough phenomenon to warrant it as a boundary for, or as an exception for people who should do psychedelics?
I think it's certainly not super common, no. But for somebody who would run across it, a therapist or a sitter who, when the client starts remembering this stuff, it was important enough for me to put in there that this is, don't expect that you can actually heal this person, and be very careful. So unfortunately, it's way more common than is commonly aware of. I've done a lot of research on it when I was dealing with these clients, and it's scary how entrenched it is in our political police system, in the media, and they've got people in control of a lot of this culture, and the trauma is such that very few of the victims ever really make it to therapy. Although they do have support groups for them, and there are therapists who specialize in that. So to answer your question, it's not super common, but unfortunately, it's probably more common than any of us would like to know about.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I had my days being absorbed into some of the theories around Luciferianism and satanic ritual, manipulation of people so as to control political and systemic issues, or systemic the systems in general. And I think I had gotten to a point where I wanted to basically tell myself, like, okay, maybe, but also probably not. So I feel like a little sense of like, whew, okay, might be time to revisit that stuff if it's noticeable enough that someone like yourself has had, firsthand immersion in the actual impact of that and the presence of it in people.
Exactly. I wouldn't have believed. It's so unbelievable. I wouldn't have believed the stuff myself if it wasn't right in front of my eyes. They were reenacting it, coming out of their psyche.
Mm-hmm. And this is a curiosity, and we don't have to go here, of course, by any means. And I hope that the fact that I'm going to ask you this question isn't a hang up for other people. But do you believe that there's some sort of that the satanic ritual abuse specifically is because of some sort of external agency that is present with satanic rituals. And what I'm referring to here is like forces of good and evil, entities. Is that sort of like behind what you think is behind this issues with satanic stuff? Or is that just the cultural form that a very highly organized system of ritual abuse has taken in the modern world, which has, and in the Western world, which has, deep, long-running history with Christianity?
I'm not really clear on that. You mean, are there actually demonic forces, or are we talking about are there actually physically groups of people that are organized?
Well, I think, thank you for asking, because but the question just came up now, so it wasn't very clear. I almost I was asking myself out loud. But yeah, demonic forces. Do you believe in that? I mean, believe is weird. I feel like I'm not really representing myself great right now as an interviewer, or or even as an intellectual person that is curious. Mm-hmm. But I am interested in what your thoughts are insofar as demonic forces, and could that be part of what's going on with the satanic ritual abuse?
Yeah, there are demonic forces. I don't know how. I don't want to make people paranoid and get into these kind of, I don't know, weird places. Ultimately, it's really the absence of love and the absence of God. I don't really. I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I can't give a clear answer from that, and I'm afraid listeners can spin off into some really paranoid places with this stuff, because my experience is, as long as you're living in your integrity, out of your heart, your connection with spirit, you're safe from demonic presences and their influence.